Welcome to the debate. If you were listening to this, you probably know the exact feeling that happens at 6 o'clock in the morning on a cold, dark Tuesday.
Oh, I think we all know that feeling.
Right. Your alarm goes off, you hear the rain against the window, you remember the running shoes sitting by the door. And, well, in that split second, a negotiation begins in your mind.
Yeah, the conscious will to improve your health goes to war with the immediate, overwhelming desire to just stay under the warm covers.
Exactly. For most of human history, that daily friction, that internal negotiation, was simply the price of being alive. We kind of just assumed it was an unchangeable law of nature.
Because the struggle was the point. It was where human character was forged, or, frankly, where it failed.
Spot on. But what if you could just turn that negotiation off? What if you could bypass the conscious struggle entirely? Today, we are looking at the societal and really the philosophical implications of the Tier 2 hypnotic disc.
Which is the technology central to the Hypnotic Productivity Expansion Bill that they recently debated in the House of Commons.
Yes, exactly. And in just 18 months, this device, which safely suppresses conscious awareness during work and exercise routines, has caused staggering macroeconomic and public health shifts. I mean, we are talking about a £43 billion aggregate household surplus here.
Right, in generational leaps in cardiovascular fitness. The numbers from the past year and a half are, well, they're undeniably massive. It really is the ultimate Faustian bargain of our time.
They are massive. And they force us to confront a really profound central question. Does the hypnotic disc represent a triumph of public health and economic stability that finally frees humans to pursue richer lives?
Or does the systematic surrender of our conscious agency fundamentally compromise what it means to actually experience human life?
Right. In this discussion, I will be arguing that the empirical outcomes, the dramatic, undeniable improvements in health, wealth, and community engagement, they morally and practically validate this technology as the ultimate liberation from human fallibility.
And I will argue the opposite. I think that outsourcing our willpower and our emotional regulation to a device trades our essential human autonomy, our very connection to ourselves and others, for, well, a sterile algorithmic efficiency.
Let's lay out our core positions here. For a generation, we have sat back and watched society fail to legislate, nudge, or educate citizens out of chronic financial and physical precariousness.
Because the old models just didn't work.
Right. The Treasury tried tax incentives for savings, and they failed. Public health campaigns pleaded with people to exercise, and they failed. Human willpower is simply not equipped to handle the modern environment of, hyper-processed food, predatory marketing, and exhausting sedentary labor.
I don't disagree with the environmental factors, but
enter the Tier 2 disc. In just 12 months, the average British worker using this disc has seen a 38% net household savings increase. Gym attendance is up 640%. Bypassing flawed human willpower is not a loss of agency.
Well, it depends on how you define agency.
I mean, you wake up wealthier, you wake up healthier, and you are finally ready with the energy to actually enjoy your life. That's vastly better than spending it exhausted by the sheer effort of self-discipline.
Look, I will not dispute the statistical gains provided by the Institute for Fiscal Studies and the Office for National Statistics. They are unimpeachable. The data is real.
It is.
But we have to measure the underlying philosophical cost of how those numbers are achieved. The disc eliminates what the ONS clinically refers to as unbudgeted affective consumption and completely outsources our physical exertion.
Which is a good thing.
Is it? Because in doing so, we are erasing the conscious experience of struggle, of reward, of daily friction. A society that is optimized by a private algorithm governed by continuous passive diagnostics from corporations like Asta Medical is one that fundamentally hollows out the lived human experience.
I think hollows out is a bit extreme.
I don't think it is. We are reducing citizens to passive passengers in their own bodies. It is an abdication of life itself.
Okay. Well, to really understand this supposed abdication, I think we need to first clarify how this technology actually functions, particularly when it comes to our daily economic choices.
Sure.
Because the term hypnotic disc sounds like magic, but the neuroscience is deeply pragmatic. The Tier 2 device essentially acts like an airplane's autopilot for the brain. It safely shunts neural activity away from the prefrontal cortex.
Right. The seat of conscious awareness and decision-making.
Exactly. While perfectly maintaining motor function and procedural memory in the cerebellum. You're still walking, typing, and functioning, but the you that gets stressed out by an Excel spreadsheet is temporarily offline.
Convenient.
It is. And the economic results of that is profound. The British high street for the better part of a century has functioned as a machine designed to convert low-level workplace unhappiness into impulse purchases.
You mean the daily commute?
Exactly. The exhausted worker buys a terribly overpriced coffee on the way in. At 11 in the morning, they buy a pastry they don't really want, simply to endure the morning.
We've all been there.
At lunch, they drift into a Pret on the corner out of pure social inertia. What the hypnotic disc does is shut that machine down. The hypnotized worker eats precisely what their nutritional module dictates. The money simply stays in the household account.
I come at it from a different way. I completely understand the Treasury's argument there, but I think they are fundamentally mismeasuring what a joy actually is. You use the term machine for converting unhappiness, but let's translate what the ONS clinically and coldly calls unbudgeted affective consumption.
Okay, let's translate it.
In real terms, that is the emergency chocolate bar you buy at 3 in the afternoon because your boss yelled at you. It is the architecture of small joys and spontaneous coping mechanisms.
But it's an unhealthy coping mechanism.
When you remove a person's ability to buy a coffee or a biscuit because they are tired, you are pathologizing human comfort. You are saying that a spontaneous desire for a pastry is a math error in the system that must be eradicated by a nutritional module. That isn't economic empowerment. It is the enforcement of robotic asceticism.
I see why you think that. But let me give you a different perspective on that 3 p.m. chocolate bar. That spontaneous desire is not some pure poetic expression of the human soul. It is an emotional tax levied on exhausted workers by an environment engineered to exploit their fatigue.
It's still a choice.
Barely. The supermarket is bright, the supermarket has biscuits, and the worker is tired. That isn't freedom. That is entrapment. Keeping 43 billion pounds a year in the households of working people isn't destroying joy.
But you're taking away the micro moments.
It is taking wealth that was being drained by predatory impulse markets and returning it to deliberate, conscious household choices. You can spend that money on your family, on a holiday, on something that brings profound joy rather than a fleeting sugar rush designed to get you through a Tuesday afternoon.
But you are assuming that the only valid human choices are the macro-level, highly deliberate ones. The holidays, the big purchases. Human beings live in the micro moments. The friction of Tuesday afternoon is part of the week.
A part we don't need to suffer through.
If you anesthetize the worker through the afternoon, you are removing their presence from their own timeline. Think of it like an immune system. A society without friction is like an immune system without pathogens.
I'm not sure the immune system metaphor holds up here.
It absolutely does. If you never have to consciously navigate boredom, fatigue, or the temptation of a pastry, your psychological resilience completely atrophies. You become incredibly fragile.
But if navigating that temptation leads to mass insolvency and metabolic disease, the immune system was already failing, which leads perfectly into how this physical optimization works. We see the exact same outsourcing of discipline when it comes to the body itself.
Right, the fitness metrics.
Exactly. The previous model, relying on conscious effort to maintain cardiovascular health, was a complete systemic failure. Take the Shadow Chancellor's own pre-disc anecdote from his common speech.
Oh, the gym membership.
Yeah. He paid £3,264 over 4 years for exactly 11 gym visits. The fitness industry wasn't a health mechanism. It was a transfer of wealth from the well-intentioned to the well-equipped.
Yes, people fail to go to the gym. People are incredibly fallible. But the solution the disc offers is deeply chilling to me. The Shadow Chancellor said it himself regarding his own dramatic weight loss. The running has been done. The body knows.
Which is incredible.
But the mind does not remember it?
Because the conscious pilot stepped out of the cockpit, so to speak.
Right. And divorcing conscious effort from physical achievement fundamentally severs the human relationship with the physical self. If you do not experience the burn of your lungs, the fatigue of your muscles, the triumph of finishing the mile, is it even your achievement?
I mean, it's your body.
You have turned your physical form into a tamed animal that you outsource the care of.
I hear that, but I'm just not convinced by that line of reasoning because it romanticizes suffering while completely ignoring catastrophic public health outcomes. Before the disc, people weren't experiencing the triumph of finishing the mile. Let's be honest.
Some were.
Very few. Most were sitting on their couches suffering from cardiovascular disease. Today, average daily steps have rocketed from 4,100 to 10,800 across the working population. Resting heart rates have seen improvements that cardiologists describe as generational.
But at what psychological cost?
If the outcome is saving millions of lives and adding decades of healthy longevity to the population, the method of bypassing conscious memory during a 6 a.m. run is entirely justified. The conscious mind gets to enjoy the healthy body. Why does it need to suffer the treadmill?
Because disconnecting the cause from the effect creates a profound psychological detachment. When you build a society that feels no agency over its own physical state, fitness becomes magic.
It's not magic, it's biology.
To the user, it feels like magic. You wake up, you are suddenly fit. Your body hurts slightly, but you have no memory of why. You are alienating humans from their own biology.
I think alienating is the wrong word when we consider how the technology actually prevents the body from overexerting while the conscious mind is offline. To make the autopilot analogy work, the plane needs sensors, right?
Okay.
We are actually integrating people closer to their biology through continuous passive diagnostics. The disc doesn't just run the body blindly. It monitors it. We're talking about 24/7 telemetry.
Which is exactly the problem.
Heart rate, respiration, the basic electrical signature of a central nervous system, all continuously analyzed to ensure the hypnotic exertion is perfectly scaled to the user's physical limits.
Wait, let me stop you right there. You use the phrase integrating people closer to their biology, but the people aren't integrating at all. Aston Medical is integrating with their biology.
They are providing the algorithmic oversight. Yes.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. They are a private corporation establishing a monopoly on the most intimate biological telemetry conceivable. We are delegating our central nervous system data to an algorithm.
It's heavily regulated.
Even with the Shadow Health Secretary's proposed amendments, this fundamentally and permanently shifts the balance of power between the citizen and the corporation. When your respiration and your neural electrical signatures are continuously uploaded to a private server, you no longer possess a private physical existence. You are a data node. It is the ultimate privatization of surveillance.
I understand the instinct to jump to dystopia, but you have to weigh that abstract privacy concern against the catastrophic reality of the pre-disc National Health Service. Think about what that actually meant for people.
I know, the NHS was struggling, but
The old model of medicine was fundamentally broken. A patient would arrive at a GP surgery with a vague, unarticulated sense of feeling unwell, and a doctor had exactly 11 minutes to play detective, based on flawed subjective human memory. How long have you felt this way? Does it hurt when you do this?
that's just standard medical practice.
It was inefficient. Now, the British hypnotic user arrives with 18 months of continuous, perfectly objective cardiovascular data.
But the corporation holds the keys to that data.
The AI diagnostics have increased early detection for cardiovascular disease by 71%. Type 2 diabetes detection is up 64%. The Treasury calls the cost reduction encouraging. I call it what it is, a transformative reduction in human suffering and death.
I don't deny the medical efficacy.
You talk about power imbalances, but what about the ultimate powerlessness of a patient dying from a preventable disease because it wasn't caught in an 11-minute appointment?
Look, I will grant you that the NHS was struggling, and the reduction in physical suffering is profound. I am not denying the medical efficacy of having a computer watch your heart all day, but we must be honest about what we are trading for it.
A little privacy for a longer life.
We are trading the sanctity of the unmonitored self, and we know that data, once collected, is rarely utilized solely for the altruistic benefit of the user. It is modeled, it is sold, it is leveraged. We are allowing a corporation to own our physiological baseline.
And yet, users configure the data sharing directly with their GPs. It operates seamlessly in the background. The user sees their doctor less often for shorter appointments and walks out with drastically better outcomes.
In theory,
It's a systemic efficiency that saves both the healthcare system and the individual. But if we follow that thread, this idea of systemic efficiency, we have to look at what happens when millions of these perfectly monitored, perfectly healthy individuals interact. Or, well, more accurately, how they don't interact during their optimized hours. Let's look at the transformation of the social fabric.
This is where the cost becomes most visible, and, frankly, most tragic to me. Psychologists have noted what they call the quiet workplace. Because workers are hypnotized, there is no chat at the coffee machine. There is no gossiping.
Some would say that's a perk.
The friction of the office is completely gone. And while management might love a friction-free environment, that friction was human connection. The institutional fabric of working life has thinned to something almost gossamer. Workers are isolated in their own physical bodies.
They're working. That's what they're there for.
But they don't know the name of the woman sitting 2 desks down. It is a profound societal loneliness, the death of organic mentorships, the death of unexpected friendships that used to define our daily lives.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. I think you are heavily mythologizing the office. For most modern history, the dense, exhausting social weather of the workplace was exactly what drained people.
It was a community.
The actual work was the easy part. Navigating the politics, the forced proximity, the obligation to pretend to care about a colleague's weekend, that was exhausting. The old system sent workers home so depleted they barely knew their own children. They spent Saturday recovering from Friday. Retirement was viewed as the only time a person might finally rest.
But the workplace was a shared reality. It was a community, however flawed and annoying it might have been at times.
But look at what has replaced it. The thinning of the workplace has led directly to the thickening of what the ONS calls purposive hobbyist gatherings. With the energy and the money sieved by the disc, attendance at local theaters, live music, and restaurants are breaking records.
Because people are desperate for interaction.
People are joining choirs. They're taking up the cello at 53 years old. Because they aren't drained by the office, they actually have the energy, the health, and the surplus income to engage in genuine community life. I would argue that voluntarily joining a local drama group or a community choir is vastly superior to the forced, exhausted proximity of a corporate office. The office may be lonelier, but the country is absolutely not.
Is it a genuine community life, though? Or is it a heavily curated simulation of one, funded by the erasure of their waking hours? You say they take up the cello at 53, but they do so as highly optimized sleepwalkers.
They're wide awake when they're playing the cello.
They have outsourced their financial discipline, their physical exertion, their biological monitoring, and their workplace interactions to a disc on their neck. Yes, they have energy left over for the choir, but what kind of human is showing up to sing?
A happy one?
A person who has been stripped of their daily struggles is a person who has lost touch with a fundamental spectrum of human emotion. You are creating perfectly healthy, perfectly wealthy ghosts.
Well, we are going to have to pull our arguments together because we are looking at the exact same data and seeing 2 entirely different species of human being.
That we are.
To summarize my position, for generations, we accepted that daily life had to be an endless, exhausting battle of willpower against environments fundamentally designed to make us fail. By delegating our most tedious and failure-prone daily struggles, saving money, exercising, health screening, office politics, to the disc, we have objectively freed up human energy.
The data is clear, sure.
Exactly. The data is clear. We have built a society that is wealthier, fitter, and fundamentally more engaged in the intentional, purposive aspects of community life. We have stopped expecting flawed humans to be perfect and instead gave them a tool that handles the perfection for them, leaving them free to simply live the parts of life they actually choose.
And to summarize mine, while the empirical data is undeniably spectacular, the cost of that data is our very presence in our own lives. Struggle, friction, and even failure are not bugs in the human operating system, they are the operating system.
Right.
By outsourcing our willpower and our biological sovereignty to a private algorithm, we trade our messy, spontaneous autonomy for a sterile optimization. We risk becoming a society of incredibly healthy, financially secure passengers, totally absent from the very mechanisms that keep us alive.
Well, we certainly agree on one thing. The hypnotic disc is not a passing trend. It represents a permanent, profound restructuring of human behavior, economics, and social institutions. We have crossed a threshold into a new paradigm of human existence.
Agreed. There is no putting this technology back in the box. The infrastructure of our society has already contorted to accommodate it.
The source material we've explored today offers a fascinating window into how we define human thriving. There is so much more to unpack regarding the balance between efficiency and lived experience. It leaves us with a profound question to chew on. When that alarm goes off on a cold, rainy Tuesday morning and the struggle to rise is completely removed from your mind, are you truly waking up at all?
That's a wrap on today's chapter. We hope you enjoyed settling in with us over your lunch break. New chapters drop twice a week right here on the New Atlantis Inc., so make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell so you never miss what happens next. This story is also available on Amazon in hardback, paperback, and Kindle editions. Thanks for being here. We'll see you at our next lunchtime listening, and keep on reading.